It's so lovely to meet you. I've heard so many great things about you. So I was wondering if you want to start, just a quick summary about what it is you actually do and what you're passionate about.
So, my name is Tamma. Yeah. I am the director and founder of Envelo Limited, which is an environmental consultancy and training business based here in the Northeast. I specialize in helping businesses understand environmental legislation to make sure that they don't cause pollution. I help them implement management systems to improve their sustainability performance. And I'm working really hard on helping businesses align their strategy with the Sustainable Development Goals, so that sustainability can hopefully be at the heart of how businesses operate and kind of inform all key decision making.
So in simple terms, it's very much businesses who don't know a lot about sustainability, you're there to educate them and make sure they're doing the right thing. I
kind of think of myself as a bit of a sustainability interpreter. Do you know, it's really, sustainability is such a huge topic, but then so is business.
Yes,
and I'm just trying to find this middle ground where the two can actually meet and, kind of help them speak to each other and align with each other, so that it's something that's not separate to how businesses operate.
I feel like that's very similar to what we're trying to...
I think when you're trying to win hearts and minds, which is ultimately what's necessary for sustainability to be a success, it does have to be understandable and translatable and transferable.
Yes, definitely. So where did your passion for sustainability actually begin?
So I was born and raised in South Africa, and I think that has a huge part to play in kind of my relationship with the environment and how I perceive the environment. So I was taught from a very early age that we as humans are visitors in nature's garden, and we have a responsibility for stewardship and to preserve and conserve our surrounding environment for our own survival as well.
So my understanding of South Africa, because I have been raised up with a lot of South Africans, is it is a very faith-based country, and me as a Christian has also been raised up with the idea of stewardship. I was talking about it the other day with Johnny, who also works with us. So do you think that's got a big part to play about it, how South Africa does care so much about the environment and the planet, or do you think it's something completely separate?
I don't know, I think it's probably a combination of both, kind of faith but multiple faiths. So interestingly, I'm Jewish, and there is also this concept of stewardship for the planet and the environment that's quite inherent in Judaism as well. But I think in Africa it's cultural, and some of those faiths, those religions, they're very old school, the old gods, but what all of them kind of allude to is that human survival is dependent on the planet, and ultimately the planet is bigger than any individual. There's something bigger than we are, and that needs to be respected and protected. I think also in Africa, the kind of lines between people and the wild, nature, are actually, we're so much closer to each other. So you do just see the impacts of human activity literally right in front of you. And obviously we've got some incredible species, so kind of in winning those hearts and minds, people love elephants and lions and cheetahs and leopards. Those are species that kind of engage, people in caring about the environment, nature, the wild.
So, can you try explain sustainability as simple as possible?
Of course. So, when we talk about sustainability, we tend to talk about the triple bottom line, or the 3 Ps, okay? People, planet, and profit. When we think about what that actually means, the best way to visualize it is a 3-legged stool with people, planet, profit, each being a leg of that stool. One of those legs is too short or too long, given too much attention or not enough attention, then the stool's going to topple over. It doesn't work. So in order to have a perfectly functional 3-legged stool, true sustainability, then people, planet, profit all need to be equal.
I'm finding out as we're going along, there's a lot of metaphors when it comes to sustainability. Everyone I talk to has got a different metaphor. I'm trying to memorise them all, but it does put things in actually really simple terms. What is the global climate crisis?
Okay, so when we talk about the climate crisis, what we're referring to is climate change. The climate change is caused by something called global warming, okay, or the greenhouse gas effect. So global warming is where we are storing huge volumes of carbon dioxide equivalent greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, which are causing the atmosphere to warm up, which causes climate change. Now the confusion is that climate change doesn't necessarily mean everywhere's going to get warmer. What it means is that we will see more severe or more extreme weather events. So where it's hot, it's going to get hotter. Where it's cold, it's going to get colder. Wet will get wetter, dry will get drier. So it's pushing natural cycles, natural climate cycles to their absolute extremes. Biggest contributors to the global climate crisis are greenhouse gas emissions, which we most commonly hear as carbon dioxide emissions, but there are a whole bunch of other gases within that. It's also the rate at which we're using resources, so how we are destroying natural habitats and species that is limiting this planet's ability to recover itself. She can do that. She has all of these natural processes that exist, but we're getting in the way of them. And the other thing, unfortunately, is the growing population. There are a lot of us, and we all need food, we all need clothes, we all need water, and we all need houses. But we're already pushing all the resources to their limits as it is. So how do we manage that with everything that's changing now, with everything that future generations are going to need for their own survival?
Oh, this may sound like a very silly question as someone who knows a lot about it, but sometimes when I think about the Earth changing its climate, is it not just naturally what the Earth does anyway? Because we've already had ice ages, is that not just the natural progress of what the Earth does? We just keep starting afresh and starting afresh and starting afresh. So should we be stopping it or just accepting this is naturally the process of how the Earth goes and we just keep starting again?
So there are natural cycles, and you're right, we have seen this global warming and global freezing several times throughout human society, or the history of this planet. The difference is the time frame that it's happening. So those cycles are supposed to take hundreds, if not thousands of years. But everything that we're seeing now can scientifically be proved to have been caused within the last 100 years, directly as a consequence of human activities. So it's more like we're using too much and we're putting too much back in too fast. It's just not giving the planet enough time to cope with the impact that we're having on it. It is part of the natural cycles, but we're making it happen too fast.
That fact there that we've done it all in 100 years is just shocked us. That is
since the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah,
it can be pinpointed.
Yeah, that is insane. In my last interview with Katerina, she was telling me a little bit about the Paris Climate Agreement. I was wondering if you could tell me some more.
So what we understand about the impact of carbon emissions on the environment is that it's causing global temperatures to rise. The Paris Agreement has been established to make sure that we reduce carbon emissions to a low enough level to stop the temperature rise at 1.5 degrees centigrade. Now, 1.5 degrees centigrade is really important because although it seems like a really small number, what we have to understand is that there are natural processes that are temperature dependent. Okay. So think a bit like your body. If your temperature spikes 1 degree, 2 degrees higher, that's a medical emergency because your body cannot operate at that temperature. So the Paris Agreement is a global agreement where each country has committed to reduce their carbon emissions to try and limit a more than or a greater than 1.5 degree rise. If we push it too far than that, the science is telling us that the consequences for the planet will be catastrophic. So in order for us to undo the damage that we've done so far, 1.5 degrees is the magic number.
So since 2015, since this came into place, have the countries that have agreed kept to that 1.5?
No. At the moment, it looks like we are exceeding it, possibly pushing closer to about a 2 degree rise. Okay. I think 2 degrees is scientifically considered like the red line. What they have estimated is that the cost of inaction, so if we do absolutely nothing now, then temperatures are likely to rise by about 4 degrees within the next 50 to 100 years. Wow. And that would be unrecoverable. So we've got a little bit of leeway.
Over the last few years, we've been hearing about how bad plastic is for the environment. I was wondering if you could let us know why it's so bad and what your opinions are on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So in very simplistic terms, plastic does not belong in the environment. It is a man-made material, and that's why it is damaging and harmful to the environment. I think most people understand that when plastic breaks down and degrades, it never really disappears. It just forms kind of smaller pieces of plastic.
I don't think as many people did understand that, because when I learned about it, I was like, okay, this is something that I think needs talked about and simplified more, the actual process of plastic and where it ends up.
It is really a unique material in that kind of nature. So, that's the bottom line. It doesn't belong in the environment, and that's why it is so harmful when it is allowed to escape. But plastic is not popping itself out into the environment. You know, it's how people are using and consuming and disposing of it that is actually causing the plastic problem. Plastic actually has some really excellent uses. It is necessary in quite a few areas of our lifestyles, of society and medicine and care, but we are using it excessively. You know, again, just way more than we possibly need, this kind of take, use, dispose lifestyle, and we're not being responsible when we are disposing of it. So my argument is the plastic problem is actually a people problem. If plastic is used properly, responsibly, for the right purposes in the right ways, it's actually quite a magical material.
What are sustainable development goals?
So, remember we talked about that triple bottom line of sustainability, people, planet, profit. Well, within each of those pillars, there's actually still even further detail, you know, kind of competing requirements, different communities, individuals, societies needing different things even under each of those three banners. So again, a global agreement was pulled together to develop the Sustainable Development Goals. And these are 17 of the world's most pressing sustainability issues that would fit under those three pillars. It takes 17 high-level issues addressing everything from gender equality, poverty, sustainability, decent work and economic growth, climate action, peace and justice, and partnerships. And basically provides a roadmap, a framework for individuals, businesses, governments, communities to subscribe to help us achieve that triple bottom line of sustainability.
So kind of how your job is to tell the individual business, this is like an overall manifesto to go out to the world of how to...
So it's structured, there's 17 goals, and sitting underneath those goals, there's actually 169 individual targets. So it's huge, but again, the issue of sustainability is huge. There are a lot of things that need to be addressed. So what's great about the SDGs is that it breaks it down into 169 targets. Literally just throw an arrow at it and choose a direction. You know, there are so many options for you, for individuals, for businesses specifically, to align their activities to. And what's fantastic is that everybody's using those same 169 targets, which means for the first time we actually have global comparisons, you know, everybody singing off the same hymn sheet, measuring the same thing to help us work out whether we can realistically achieve those goals by a 2030 target.
Are these compulsory?
They're not in terms of each specific goal and each specific target, but they are a global agreement. So pretty much every country in the world, bar 3 or 4, have signed up to this. And from a government level, what that says is that there is a commitment that governments will begin to push forward legislation that will drive the change for sustainable development. So with that legislation, then some of those requirements are gradually becoming compulsory, but at the moment it is entirely voluntary.
Who makes sure that businesses don't pollute the planet?
Well, each country in the world actually will have environmental legislation in place in some way, shape or form that ultimately protects the planet and demands that individuals and businesses don't cause pollution. In the UK, we have an overarching piece of legislation called the Environmental Protection Act, and that has been established since 1990, so it's an old piece of legislation, and basically that underpins a whole bunch of other regulations that are designed to stop unnatural materials ending up into the environment. Each country will have its own laws and its own regulators, and those are enforceable actually because it is a legal requirement.
To finish up, we'd like to ask everyone the same fun question. If no one was going to stop you, you had all the resources, you had a magic wand, how would you solve this huge problem?
So I kind of have two solutions. Firstly, I'd love to see everybody living simpler lives. I'm a big advocate and believer in equality, and I think the inequality across this globe is one of the biggest issues that we're facing for societies, for individuals. So I figure if everybody could just live simpler lives, then there might be a few more resources to go around, and it could be, you know, kind of more equally shared and distributed. The other thing I do is help the planet protect herself. So I would impose a blanket ban on any activity that causes habitat destruction or species lost for a set amount of time, like 2 or 5 years. Just stop for a very short while and give the planet a chance to recover. And actually, I believe that approach, even at the rates that we are consuming resources, if we kind of did a rotation, 5 years on, 5 years off, 5 years on, 5 years off, then actually the way we consume resources from the environment would be inherently more sustainable.
It's like how farmers look after the fields, isn't it? They have 4
Absolutely.
fields in every year. One year they leave one, and then it goes in a rotation. So it is like that one field, but is the whole planet on the much bigger scale.
I think our immediate priority needs to be on oceans, actually, because the ability of the oceans to reduce carbon, absorb carbon is pretty huge. So, extremely controversial, but I would probably just, ban commercial fishing for a period, let the oceans recover, and then we'd all be all right.